What if there was an emergency and you had to call 911?
Emergency? Do you require the police, ambulance, or fire department?
What if your father was having a heart attack?
My father's collapsed and I don't think he's breathing.
What if your home was on fire?
The flames are too hot. I need some help. My daughter's still inside.
What if someone was breaking into your home?
I hear someone breaking in downstairs. I'm so scared. I'm all alone.
What if your baby stopped breathing?
Oh my God, he's turning blue. Hurry, please.
But what if help couldn't get to you as fast as you needed to? This is the Communications Center for the Toronto Police, where every day more than 3,000 911 calls are received. That's more than 3,000 people a day who require immediate help. Toronto's emergency services, police, fire, and ambulance provide an excellent response to 911 calls, usually arriving within minutes. But all too often, the response is delayed by motorists who slow them down. Drivers who, for whatever reason, don't get out of their way. And it's these delays that cause precious seconds to be lost. Seconds that could mean the difference between life and death.
It's very important to get to these calls in a timely manner because, first of all, somebody there has dialed 911 to let us know that they need assistance. It could be medical, it could be a crime in progress, and a timely response is crucial. So when citizens on the roadway hinder our response time, it could make a huge difference at the other end of that call.
It's extremely important to move over and pull to the right and get out of the way of emergency vehicles because those seconds can save somebody you love. We might be going to your house. You just don't know it yet. And when we get there, we want to find that we can make a difference in your loved one's life rather than being there and it's too late.
This could save your life. This could save the life of your child or your grandmother or your friend. This is not a dramatic interpretation. This is the truth. This is what we do every day, and this is why we want you to do it. To delay us could cost someone their life.
We all share in the responsibility to ensure emergency help gets to where it's needed, when it's needed. And for drivers, that means moving out of the way of responding emergency vehicles. And while most drivers do move over and stop, many don't. Like these drivers who not only delay the response of the firefighters by taking far too long to get out of the way, but one driver stops in the middle of the street, creating a roadblock and a potentially dangerous situation.
Everyone can pull to the right and stop. I have between 2,400, 2,500 liters of water behind me on this truck. So if you get excited or upset and just stop in front of me, it's not quite so easy for me to stop. I have a little cushion of weight coming behind me, and therefore it's a little more dangerous. The idea is not to get into an accident going to an accident. The idea is to arrive safely.
People should know that they have a responsibility to everybody else on the road. Just because they're in their vehicle does not mean that they're in a cocoon. We have to think about what we're doing. Your actions affect everybody else's actions.
Keep in mind that an emergency vehicle can approach from any direction at any time. You must be alert to what is happening around you so that you can take the appropriate actions. As soon as you see the lights or hear the siren, check around you and look into your mirrors to determine where the emergency vehicle is and which way it's going. Look for a place on your right that you can move into quickly and safely. Signal as you move over to let the driver know that you've seen them. And then come to a complete stop as close to the side of the road as possible without blocking an intersection. This will create a clear passage for the emergency vehicle to pass you. Now compare the response times between when the drivers didn't move out of the way of the fire truck and when they do. And on a one-way street such as this, you can move over to the right or left side. The delay of 14 seconds may not seem like a lot to you, but to the person who called 911, it can make a huge difference.
Fire doesn't stay in one state very long. If we're going to a fire call, it builds. And the longer it has time to build, the worse the fire is going to be. So what may start out as a kitchen fire or a small fire on the stove If we get delayed once, it's now a kitchen fire. If we get delayed 2 or 3 times, it's now the first floor of a house fire. If we get delayed 4 or 5 times on the way to that call, it could be a fully involved house.
We were responding to this call and the driver would not move, would not move, would not move. And finally, he did end up moving over to the side. And when we got there, it was his house that was on fire. And we were delayed to the point where we couldn't actually enter the house. But property damage was extensive because this particular person actually did it to themselves. It was unfortunate, but this is one situation where one person can testify for you how important it is to pull to the right and stop, and they learned their lesson.
It's the law that all drivers must move over and stop for emergency vehicles approaching from either direction. If you don't, you could receive an $85 fine, plus you'll receive 3 demerit points. When you move over and stop to allow an emergency vehicle to pass, it's important not to pull back out into traffic right away. Very often, especially in the case of the fire service, more than one vehicle may be responding, so other trucks may be a few seconds behind the first. So by pulling out right away, you could cause a serious collision, as almost happened to this impatient driver.
If an emergency service vehicle becomes involved in collision en route to one of these emergency calls, then they're out of the play. So some other responder now has to start from square one to get to that call. So the time delay will be even more significant.
So always check the way is clear before pulling out to protect everyone from being involved in a collision. Just because our highways have multiple lanes, you can't think that emergency vehicles can simply find a way around you. You're still required by law to move over, and that even includes when they're on the shoulder. However, if the highway only has a narrow shoulder, the responder may drive half in the shoulder and half in the lane. In this case, you must move into the next lane. Don't be like this driver who has the room to move over but doesn't.
Always be aware of your surroundings. I know people are in a rush these days. Every once in a while you will see an emergency vehicle coming up behind you. Just take a quick look in your rearview mirror and look off to your right, behind your shoulder, and please try to pull over to the right so we can pass by.
Intersections can often be very difficult for emergency responders to get through. So all drivers who are either stopped at an intersection or approaching from any direction must move over and keep the intersection clear until the emergency vehicle passes through. Otherwise, disaster can strike. As the police car approaches this intersection, these drivers just stop where they are, even though it's their responsibility to move. And until they do, the officer is trapped.
You know, the quicker we get there, the quicker we can save these people's lives. It's citizens that are calling in that need our help, and it's a citizen that's in front of me that's not moving out of the way when they're supposed to be.
Here's what should happen. The 2 cars in the curb lane both move to the right as far as they can and stop. Because the red car in the intersection is committed to making a left turn, they must clear the intersection by completing their turn and then move to the right and stop. Since the second red car has not entered the intersection, they move to the right and also stop. The officer can now get through without delay. However, these drivers cause this ambulance a delay by not moving over, and therefore force it to cross the center line. To make things worse, the driver of the blue car isn't paying attention, so he makes a left turn in front of the ambulance, almost causing a collision.
Sometimes collisions occur, and we have had emergency service personnel injured unnecessarily and not get to that call.
Whenever you are approached by an emergency vehicle at an intersection and you want to turn left, don't. Instead, you must move over to the right and stop with all the other vehicles. This gives the ambulance a clear lane in the same direction of travel and avoids them from having to cross the center line. Crossing the center line into oncoming traffic is not something emergency responders ever want to do, but sometimes they're forced to because some drivers don't move over. Now, while it's lawful for them to do, it can be dangerous.
Contrary to how exciting it seems to go into oncoming traffic and to cross over that line, it's quite a dangerous maneuver to make because the drivers, I would suspect, have a more delayed response to us. They're not expecting to see us coming at them.
These paramedics are forced into oncoming traffic when no one in front moves over, and the drivers coming in the opposite direction don't know what to do, so they simply stop where they are. This makes it extremely difficult and dangerous for the paramedics to get through.
Pay attention to the road and the other drivers around you, because when we do end up behind you, we want you to do what's right. and that's to pull over and get out of the way.
On any two-way road without a median, drivers in both directions must move over and stop as close as possible to the right side of the road, clear of any intersection. This creates a clear passage for the ambulance to get through quickly and safely. See the difference? When all the drivers moved to the right and stopped, the ambulance saved 7 seconds. Those 7 seconds may not seem like much to you, but they mean a great deal to the patient in the back. Just ask 30-year-old Terry Flynn. He was on his way to pick up his 2 young children one afternoon when he discovered just how important those few seconds can be.
I was just driving along doing about 65 kilometers an hour and coming to I can see the top of a hill and I seen a dump truck. Never really thought much of it, but then it started to do some swerving, and then I heard this bang. Then all of a sudden I seen this dump truck coming head on to me.
The dump truck had blown a tire, which caused it to cross the highway and smash into Terry's minivan, tearing it apart and pushing it into a field. Terry, who was severely injured, was pinned inside for 30 minutes before they got him out.
Terry had a skull fracture, a badly damaged arm, left arm, and in reality, life-threatening condition.
Although Terry received immediate medical attention at the scene and while in ambulance, Ian was greatly concerned about the long drive here, the trauma unit at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center. He had to watch every minute ticking on the clock as Terry's life was hanging in the balance.
Now, when I get down to the 401, it would just stop in all lanes. Now, this was the difficulty I had, was to try and get through that traffic and safely, but as quickly as possible, to Sunnybrook. People were great. They were excellent. They're really part of the team. They pulled to the right, they did it in a safe manner, a quick manner, and thanks to them, that we saved his life.
In the ideal situation, the patient would get the definitive medical attention needed within an hour of the accident actually happening. And in many cases, including Terry's, this could mean the difference between living or dying.
I like to say thank you to those drivers. I appreciate what they did. I would do the same thing for them in that matter. I am thankful to be here for my wife and my kids, and it's thanks to getting to the hospital on time. Those drivers moving out of the way and getting me there, those vital minutes count. It's a classic case, every second counts. And those seconds saved my life.
Another way to help save lives is by showing courtesy to others by moving over when you see them stopped at the side of the highway. Maybe their car broke down or they have a flat tire. With cars and trucks driving by at high speeds, it's certainly a dangerous situation and one that could happen to any of us. But emergency services workers experience this danger every day, whether they have stopped a car or are assisting someone who needs help. If a picture says 1,000 words, then this police in-car camera footage speaks volumes.
Get out of the road. Where did you stay at in Miami?
The increasing number of roadside collisions that involve death or injury to emergency services personnel prompted the Ontario government to enact a law to help keep them and the people they may be with at the roadside safer. It's known as the Move Over Law.
Statistics were rising over the years, and there was an incident, a particular incident involving a OPP Sergeant, Margaret Eve, on the 401 in June 2000. And this incident, her death, was the catalyst to Ontario moving forward with the Move Over Law.
It was along this stretch of the 401, just outside Chatham, that Sergeant Margaret Eve and 2 other OPP officers, Constable Brad Sacolo and Constable Patty McPhail, had stopped a vehicle.
The Gold Intrepid, which was a suspect vehicle, had pulled over. Brad staggered to the left behind that vehicle, myself staggered to the left behind Brad, and Marg staggered to the left behind me, creating kind of a safety lane so that we could approach, and every single person was out of their vehicle. Within a few minutes, we realized that these were not the suspects from the robbery, and we were just about to send them on their way, when all of a sudden I just had this huge urge to turn around. It felt like someone was leaning on my back. There was a spray of gravel in front of my face and then just blackness.
I can see 2 cruisers that have been, 3 that have been demolished. Yeah, 3, you say there's 3 cruisers demolished? I can see 3 that are demolished right here. I'm right across from it. What's going on?
The officers are all down.
The officers are all down. Okay, hurry. Okay, we're gonna get right there right now. A guy down in a truck? Okay.
And another guy landed.
Okay, and another guy. Okay, and you're gonna need quite a few ambulances.
There was a horrific collision on the shoulder of the highway. A fully loaded tractor trailer struck all 4 vehicles, the 3 officers, and the civilians who had been stopped. Steve Irwin, a Toronto police officer who was returning from a conference in Windsor, was one of the first people on scene.
There was just carnage everywhere. It was an unbelievable sight, one that I have not seen before, and I've seen many, many things in my policing career. One vehicle had been hit with such impact, it had spun down through a ditch, turned around to face the oncoming traffic, and was probably about 50 feet away from the actual roadway, facing the wrong way. The second vehicle was perpendicular to the highway. It had been split in half. I didn't realize it was an OPP vehicle because it had been cut down the middle as if a saw had cut it from bumper to bumper. The third vehicle was still, I believe, in the area of where the initial impact had occurred. There were 3 areas that I found OPP officers down. 2 of them, the officers were certainly able to speak and tell me their names. And then the third victim was OPP Sergeant Marg Eve. She was not conscious. She was very badly injured.
As a result of the collision, Sergeant Margaret Eve sustained serious life-threatening injuries. She was immediately airlifted to the London Health Sciences Centre Trauma Centre. She was taken to the operating room for life-saving surgery and then transferred to the critical care unit. Despite our best efforts, she passed away as a result of her serious injuries sustained at the scene.
It was definitely the most horrible time in my life. I guess the most absolutely frustrating part for me is that I know that it is preventable. That accident was preventable. We were stopped for a good 10 minutes of people not having any problem getting around 3 fully lit cruisers. But then all of a sudden, boom, we were hit by this tractor trailer unit who, for whatever reason, did not see us. Had the person who hit us moved over, this would have never happened.
Well, it's hard to put into words what that's done to us because, as I say, she was such a big part of our family. She was a wonderful mother. She has 2 beautiful kids, Ryan and Colleen. The beautiful thing is that Colleen has her eyes, so we still have that. But she was a really good mother and a great sister, a great daughter to Dad. And she had a loving relationship with her husband, John. They were partners and, you know, just a real match. And he's struggling. And, you know, for the rest of us, her brothers and sisters are left behind without her, and without her, we just miss her.
She was just awesome. We had a lot of fun. She you know, could bring you up when you were down, and she just helped me a lot in a lot of areas of my life. I miss her a lot, and it's a shame. I only knew her for a short time, but I'm a better person for it. I was totally blessed for the time I had with her.
There's a lot of resentment still lives on in all of us because it was so preventable. There's no reason why she shouldn't be here today. She was, you know, as much as her family, she loved her family so much. She loved being a policeman, and she was an excellent policeman. And for her to be killed doing something that she loved it's pretty hard.
We're not just cops, we're moms and we're daughters and we're husbands and wives. And when we lose an officer, it's tragic and it's preventable. So it's just so important and it's so easy. To me, it's a common sense law.
Slow down when you see an officer on the side of the road and give him or her room to do their job. That's what they're there for. And they're out there protecting us, so I think we can respect what they're doing and give them their lives.
I want something good to come out of this. It's been a hard, long road for everybody, but I know that she would want that too. We have to make something positive to come from this tragedy.
And something positive has come from Sergeant Marg Eve's tragedy: Ontario's Move Over Law, a law enacted to increase safety and hopefully ensure a tragedy like hers never happens again. The Move Over Law states that when you approach an emergency vehicle that is stopped in your direction of travel with its lights flashing, no matter if you're on a city street or highway, you are required to slow down and pass with caution. If the road has only one lane in your direction, you must move as far to the left within your lane as you can to create space between you and the stopped vehicles so you can pass safely. If the road has 2 or more lanes in your direction, and if you can do so safely, move into the next lane to create even more space when you pass. So as soon as you see a stopped emergency vehicle with its lights on, either in a lane or on the shoulder of the road, reduce your speed and check for a gap in the next lane. Signal your intention to move into it and safely change lanes. It's all about safety. Safety for you, safety for the officer, and safety for the citizen they are with. And the consequences for disobeying this law are significant. The penalty for a first offense is a fine from $400 to $2,000 plus 3 demerit points. For a second offense within 5 years, the fine can range from $1,000 to $4,000. You could also have your license suspended for up to 2 years and receive jail time for up to 6 months. These are serious penalties and indicate just how important it is to obey the Move Over Law.
I think what it boils down to is a matter of shared responsibility between everyone, not only the police or other emergency services, but all the citizens utilizing the highways in the province of Ontario. So let's try to work as a cooperative effort and make this law work.
Emergency services personnel are here to serve you, and your well-being is very important to them. That's why it's essential that we each do our part to make these laws work for everyone. It's your part to move over and stop every time you're approached by an emergency vehicle with its lights or siren on. Then the emergency personnel can do their part by getting to the call quickly and help those in need. It could be your child, your grandparent, someone that you love that needs their help. It's also your part to slow down and move over every time you see an emergency vehicle stopped on a roadway with its lights activated. Then the emergency personnel can do their part because you've allowed them to do their job safely. In either situation, moving over is something we all need to do. Not some of us, not some of the time, but all of us, all of the time. So please, move over and protect us all.
You were the strongest one I ever knew. Someone who always stood for right and true. Inside that uniform, you gave it all. We know that sometimes even the brave will fall. So shoulder to shoulder, we say goodbye and promise to carry your banner high through every storm that blows. The world will know, even though you're gone, your spirit